Welcome to Tales from the Waystone, a King Killer Chronicle reread podcast.
We are your hosts, Will and Phoenix. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Tales from the Waystone, Season 2, Episode 66, Exceptionalism is a Hell of a Drug, where we will be looking at chapters 132 through 134 of The Wise Man's Fear through the lens of No True Scotsman.
Yeah, I don't know. As much as I didn't like last time's, I don't like this time's.
Yeah.
I'd say that this chunk of the book feels unnecessary unless at some point we find out that this is Kvothe turning and becoming more of the villain, because I'm all for problematic heroes, people that have flaws, people that feel like they aren't just a saint or aren't compass points to good all the time, aren't a paragon. But this is gross, and I realize that at some point Kvothe knows that it's gross, but this is gross.
Yeah, I mean, extrajudicial murder is always gross, period.
Yeah. Torturing someone, knowing that they're going to die anyway. I do feel like we could have switched which one was No True Scotsman and which one was the Retribution one. But too late now, and they both kind of work. So...
And this one is where we really dive into the justifications that he gives himself for his actions.
Yeah. We could even attribute the No True Scotsman to Kvothe.
Right.
Because he's not, in this particular instance, he is not heroic. Like, a hero wouldn't do such things.
And I think what we're also seeing is Kvothe is trying to reckon what he's actually done with this heroic persona that he's built up for himself. And this is a case where he has, in cold blood, killed an entire group of people and then tortured and mutilated them.
Especially tortured one of them, the ringleader. Anyway, we should get into the meat of the episode because I don't think I want to spend too much time on it. And we should do our disclaimers, but before we do our disclaimers, I do want to shout out one additionally problematic thing. As you are more than likely aware, we are fans of Neil Gaiman, or at least we have been, and we have chosen to focus on one of his works, The Sandman, for our Patreon exclusive bonus pods. In light of specific allegations that I'm not going to get into, I don't know exactly where I fall on things because I don't know exact truths of the matter. I feel like the kind of knee-jerk reaction to vilify him for his actions also infantilizes the people that are affected by his actions and ignores their agency, but also power dynamics in relationships also can ignore agency or morph or negate or any other such things. And so if you want to know what the allegations are, go look it up for yourself. I'm not going into it.
Needless to say, we know that the allegations against him can be very harmful, and we don't want to cause additional harm to our listeners.
And so we don't want to celebrate his works right at this moment. So our next Equinox pod is probably going to focus on a different IP, even though we had said we were going to continue with the Sandman. I think right now we're thinking of I Hate Fairyland, but we would like input from anyone and everyone that has any interest in our bonus pods to tell us if there's a specific work by someone who hasn't been revealed to be problematic. But, following our joy, I Hate Fairyland is one that I particularly enjoy. Also, Gwynpool and a bunch of other more irreverent, kind of tongue-in-cheek things. So now on to the disclaimers. As you probably already know, each week we'll be examining a section of the Wise Man's Sphere through a chosen lens and figuring out what we can take from the text to apply to our real lives. We also take time to focus on a phronemus of the week, and then we will share a recommended thing of the week, or every other week. I know it says week, don't care. Finally, we wrap things up with 7 words from the book and 7 words from our own lives. Before we begin, let's get some disclaimers out of the way. First of all, we are in no way affiliated with Patrick Rothfuss or his publisher of books. Second of all, our discussions naturally assume that you have read the books that we are talking about, and that you don't mind spoilers, if you have not. Also, word to our community, please be kind to yourselves, one another, and the creators of the worlds that we love exploring.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So let's first quickly talk about what the No True Scotsman fallacy is. So this is a logical fallacy where people who are members of an in-group or who share an in-group with someone who's revealed to have done something horrible then retroactively exclude that person from the in-group. The whole idea is there is a Scottish person in a bar and he hears news that there was a murder committed and he says, well, no Scotsman would have done this. And then it's revealed that the murderer was actually a Scotsman. And he says, well, no true Scotsman would have done this.
I think that that's a way to reference it. I think what I would like to do is already going to kind of reveal a little bit of my recommendations. There are 2 really good videos that 2 really good video essayists, let's put it that way, that I have seen put out videos that really succinctly explain logical fallacies and do it well. And so I'm going to link those in the description. And I may rearrange what my recommendation is then, but I'll still link these.
Anyway, let's go ahead and dive in here. We start with chapter 132, The Broken Circle. So this follows basically the aftermath of the massacre. Kvothe wakes up and discovers that thanks to Felurian's shade cloak, the thing that he thought was a grievous mortal wound is just a scratch.
Which is such a cop-out.
Handy that.
It's such a narrative cop-out. He didn't bother to look when it was dark outside, but now that it's light outside, he can see that the magical thing that he has protected him from the grievous harm that he should have suffered.
So he's taken all of the bodies and lined them up by the fire, and he's fashioned a makeshift brand out of a horseshoe and a stick, and he's been going about branding each of his victims to signify that they have broken the rules of the Rue.
That they are not part of his family, that they are no true Scotsmen. I think that that's enough of that, because that's disgusting and I hate it.
As all of this is happening, we find out that Alec is only mostly dead and is alive long enough for Kvothe to interrogate him. Now, this is where I also want to say that what we are seeing in this story is Kvothe, the narrator, telling us about all of this. And we know that Kvothe, the narrator, is an unreliable narrator.
He also doesn't want to come across as a complete monster.
He wants to justify his actions.
The way that he does it, though, is by using the girls as an excuse to be absolutely
Forking.
brutal.
Like, the thing we have to remember is that he enacted this plan before he even knew that these people had kidnapped someone.
And assaulted people. Let's not forget that that seems to be what really set Kvothe off, is the assault, is the sexual assault. Now, at this point, Kryn has woken up and has exited the tent, and Kvothe gives her the opportunity to also brand. Now, okay, so the girls, while I don't agree with the idea of torturing people, have much more of a right to want to do that to their captors, to their assailants. But this part of the story makes me uncomfortable and upset. And I understand the catharsis of retribution, but it's still gross. This is still super gross.
I think part of it is that it's sort of this male power fantasy as justified by standing up for victims. It's the equivalent of fantasizing about being Batman beating up muggers.
It's white knighting taken to an extreme.
Yeah. Like I say, the kidnapping of Kryn and Ellie is something that only exacerbated Kvothe's anger here. He was already going to do this. Like, he'd already set about making these plans from the moment he'd encountered these people and decided that they weren't real Edema Rue.
I'm going to just truncate this. He, in his interrogation of Alec, finds out that the original troop was ambushed and that Alec was the only survivor and that he took over the wagons and then he hired a whole bunch of other criminals and blah, 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 blah. And there's the claim that Alec didn't have anything to do with killing the troop and blah, whatever. And then they just pretended to be Rue because they got a better reception that way. And that just goes to piss off Kvothe more. So done. And then justification to brand him and let him die of a knife wound with a skin of water nearby. Done. Sure, whatever. Gross. Thanks, Kvothe. I hate it. The next couple of chapters are pretty much just walking the girls back home.
So, chapter 133 is really about Kvothe trying to reckon with his actions. And I think ultimately failing to.
Real quick before that, I do want to say, like, in a fairness to, I really like Patrick Rothfuss's writing, the ending of the very, very brutal is, does anyone object to my leaving the troop? None of them did, so I left. Again, it goes back to that premeditated. He already had made the decision that he was going to do this and leave, which is how he was able to trick them into saying, I will stay until you all say that I don't have to.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kvothe reckoning with his own demons.
So while they're out on the road, Kvothe is kind of hazily remembering a conversation with Vachette. And Vachette's teachings about the heart of the Lithani, which are success and right action. Wrong things never lead to success. If a man acts wrongly and succeeds, that is not the way. Without the Lithani, there is no true success.
This applies to Kvothe more than it applies to the people he killed.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about this more in depth later. But I think one of the human experiences is trying to figure out how to make ends and means align correctly. Like, naturally, you want to do the right thing, and you also want to do it in such a way that it actually accomplishes your stated goals. No objections there. But it's a lot trickier in practice to actually do that, and it requires thought and intention and effort. And I think Kvothe is sitting here thinking, okay, I have taken multiple lives in cold blood. How does this square with everything that I have been learning among the Adem? Is this what Vachette would have wanted me to do?
No.
The answer is no. But he's trying to figure out, did he do the right thing? He acted in a fashion that was cruel and brutal. How does that square with the person that he claims to be, that he wants to be? What is he going to do about it? So stick a pin in that. We'll discuss that in greater depth. As nightfall nears, they make camp. Kryn makes a fire and starts on dinner while Kvothe tends to the horses and builds the tent. He realizes that they've only got the one blanket that he brought and one blanket that they salvaged from the wagons. So he recognizes this might get a little bit weird. So he puts both of the blankets in the tent. Ellie has been catatonic this whole time.
Before we leave it at he puts both blankets in the tent, he has every intention of letting the girls have the tent, which is not very much protection, but it's at least a separation from him.
I think he recognizes that after all of the things that they've been through, he needs to respect their privacy and their boundaries.
Yes. They do not need to be sleeping in a tent with someone who, for all intents and purposes, looks like they're abusers.
Yep.
And good on you, Kvothe. At least you recognize that. It doesn't make up for the fact that not all men.
We'll get to that. Yeah. So over dinner, Kvothe attempts to make conversation with Ellie. but she's pretty non-responsive.
One little thing that I will point out because I want a little bit of levity. One of the things that you said to me when we first kind of started flirting with one another that charmed me is reminiscent of one of the little things that Kvothe says to try to disarm Ellie with humor. He tells Ellie, or Elle, as he has so named her, or tried to figure out her true name. But he tells Elle, "It is good thing that we have Kryn to cook for us. Everything I cook tastes like
Horse shirt."
And at one point, when you and I were first starting to kind of flirt with one another, you said, or texted me, something along the lines of, if wishes were horses, the world would be covered in
horse shirt. Yeah. And then he offers to make horse apple pie, which, of course, horse apples, again,
horse shirt. It reminds me a little bit of when I was a lot younger and was working in a call center, and I had like the first time that I would have to talk to people on the phone for real. And the trainer saw that I was starting to panic a little bit, and he disarmed me a bit with humor. Like, he was charming, and it made me laugh instead of despair or freak out. And I think I like that gentle kind of humor to get people out of a terrible headspace.
And it's also important to note that the kind of humor that Kvothe uses in this is self-effacing. The joke here is not about Kryn or Ellie, it is about himself, his own cooking talents. It's sort of saying, okay, I can mock myself, I can make fun of myself. It's okay for you to laugh at me. It's okay for you to see me as a silly figure. You don't have to be reverent to me or anything like that. I'm not trying to build myself up as a powerful figure in your eyes.
And he's doing this so that he can more easily take care of her, because she is unable to take care of herself. She can't feed herself. She can't make her own choices right now. She's being led as though she were a horse. And Kvothe says, "Would you like to go to sleep, Elle?" And she nods. "Should I carry you to the tent?" Wrong thing to ask, because immediately adrenaline rush, panic, oh God, don't do anything to me. And so he's like, crap, maybe Kryn could do it. Let's let the other girl in the room do this. You know, I think that that's a good choice of saying, I'm not going to force you to accept my help, because that isn't the right way. But he still sees himself as benevolent. He murdered so many people in front of them, in front of these girls, and he still sees himself as benevolent.
There are a couple things that are true, even though they seem to fly in contrast to what Kvothe believes about himself. I think it is true that he has no ill will towards Ellie and Kryn, and he does genuinely want to do what's right for them. That is true. I also think that they don't know him from Adam, and there are people who will do the right thing until they do the wrong thing. And he has already shown that he is capable of intense violence, that he has a fiery temper. He's proven that he is someone who can lie convincingly.
And does.
They have seen him in ways that maybe he wouldn't want to be seen. And he has to accept the fact that maybe they will never see him as a good guy. And I don't think he truly understands that. He wants to be liked and respected for what he's done. He wants to be thanked. He wants to make this about him. And I think that's where we run into a lot of the problems.
He goes to sleep after the girls do. He places himself in front of the flap to the tent, ostensibly so that if Elle gets up in the middle of the night, she won't go far without them knowing. Still feels gross. And then he has a nightmare.
Let's be real. He committed horrible acts.
He says, I had never killed anyone like that before. Not coldly, not close up. Ugh. And he remembers when he killed Kate, she justified her own actions, her own part in things by saying, but it wasn't my fault. It was either the girls or me, which is gross. I'm leaving it at that.
So the next day, they continue on the road to Levenshire. Between the horses and Ellie, it's slow going. Ellie is in no condition to ride, so they've had to walk. So over lunch, Foth decides that maybe Ellie should walk with Greytail, who is a gentle mare that they have with them.
And it's funny that he kind of attributes this human emotion to this animal that's saying, I do not need to be taken care of by this person who cannot take care of themselves. And I think in reality, it's an idea that by having Elle take care of Greytail, it's giving her something like a purpose.
Yeah, Kvothe says, sometimes the best help a person can find is helping someone else, which, I think there's some truism to that. I know that oftentimes when I feel helpless to do something for myself, when I feel like I'm powerless to improve my situation, helping somebody else with something menial helps give me a feeling of purpose, helps me to feel better about who I am. And it can help you get out of your own head every now and then. I think it's no replacement for therapy or anything like that, but sometimes it helps. So whether that's volunteering, whether that's looking for a way to help a neighbor, there have been times I know when I've been out of work where I don't feel like I have a sense of purpose or anything like that. And it can get really easy to drag yourself into thought spirals. Focusing on helping someone else can help get you out of those. It's no surefire cure, but it can help. So I think there is something to that. And as they resume the walk, Kvothe finds himself thinking of Alec's gut wound, knowing that it'll be a slow, painful death.
Knowing that he made it worse by leaving a water skin nearby.
So at least he wouldn't die of dehydration, just infection.
Ugh. And then he was dimly aware that Kryn had started giving him the same worried look she had been giving Elle for the past 2 days, which is to say, Kvothe has been out of it and plodding along and doing things by sheer rote rather than by choices. And I think it's right for Kryn to be wary of this stranger who is ostensibly trying to take them back to their home. They don't know that.
And at this point, they also have no way to know that he even knows the way, that he's even capable of getting them there.
Right. I mean, he could just be taking them somewhere else to kill them. But all of that done, sure. That night, set up tent, girls go to bed. He goes to sleep in front of the tent again. And then he wakes up to Elle having curled up against him and having a panic attack in her sleep. And then he gets that fire back where he thought about what he had done, what his actions were, how he had so coldly murdered people. And because this girl who was maybe a year younger than him, even though he feels like he's aged twice over or more, she's still only a year younger than him. But his sense of empathy lights that fire of retribution back. And he says, I remembered it all and dreamed of worse things I could have done to them. I never had the nightmares again. Sometimes I think of Alec and I smile. Again, I think that this is a turning point. If it is used as a turning point, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know that.
I think it's meant to be if not an outright turning point, it's meant to be a harbinger of Kvothe getting caught up in his own righteousness, in his own power, in his power to exact revenge. He calls it justice, but at the same time, we know that a large part of this is he is using this band of troopers, false troopers really, as stand-ins for all of the people who victimized him over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is his way of showing that he is the one with the power now, that he is the one who is able to take revenge on all of these people who hurt him, even if they're not here. And so all of the things that he's endured that have made him angry, that have made him feel powerless, he's channeling all of that anger into these specific people who have done bad things. I'm not trying to justify them at all. But what we see here is that Kvothe is more interested in hurting them than he is in protecting the girls, than he is in stopping further predation from these people. It's about his own need to inflict pain and punishment on people that he believes deserve it, and that he is the sole arbiter of who does and doesn't deserve it. Like I say, these are extrajudicial vigilante killings. Kvothe did not take the time to figure out what these people had done before he even made an effort. He had opportunities to take less cruel actions every step of the way, and he consistently chose the more cruel options. So he had incapacitated everyone in that encampment. He could have taken that opportunity to slip out the back with the girls, get them home safely, and then warn everybody else in the surrounding countryside of who these people really were.
Yes, he could have chosen to do that. That has some other inherent risks to it, but he could have chosen non-lethal options. Or, if he was going to choose lethal options, what would have been more along the lines of the Lithani is to quickly get it over with.
Yes, exactly. And not take pleasure in inflicting pain. The Lithani is about controlling yourself and controlling your emotions and controlling the environment around you. And he did not do any of those things. He didn't control his emotions. He did not control his actions.
The last little bit of this chapter is they had made it to Levenshire the next day. Elle had come to her senses but remained quiet and withdrawn. But they also, at this point, start talking about the repercussions of what happened to them. And I think that this is more of Pat's worldview coming through, because their initial reaction is, my father is going to kill me, or I'm going to be unmarriable, or any number of things that victims tell themselves when they are harmed, especially in ways that are of a sexual nature. They feel they are sullied, that they are unclean, that they are undesirable now.
That it's somehow their fault.
And I think we see Pat's worldview saying, no, that's not true, no, which is a correct worldview to have, in my opinion. Victims are not at fault for what happened to them. They didn't cause what happened to them. If they had acted differently, the people who abused them would have had a different thing that they justified their actions with.
Or there would have been a different person that they victimized.
Correct. But I can tell you right now that I had nothing to do with the person who is ostensibly my parent abusing me. None of my decisions that I made interacting with my ex would have resulted in him being kinder to me.
Yeah.
None of them.
Absolutely.
Because it wasn't a me problem. It was a him problem. He, unless he gets help, will always have that kind of reaction to anyone, ever. He will treat other people the way he treats other people, not because the people deserve it, but because that's the way he treats other people.
And here's a case of this band of bandits set a trap, and you can't really blame people for falling into a trap. These are clearly people who have made a life for themselves by tricking other people and by being good at lying, good at tricking people, good at trapping people.
Good at manipulation.
Now, I do note that Kryn says, my father's going to hate me for this.
My father's going to kill me.
And Kvothe is, I think, projecting what he thinks a good father should say. But I don't know that we know enough about Kryn's father to believe that he will be as understanding as Kvothe says he should be.
There is a weird blame the victim mentality that does happen to victims of assault. If you hadn't done this, this wouldn't have happened. If you were a little more like this wouldn't have happened. And I'm going to say again, all of that is
bullshit.
And so Kvothe, yes, says anyone that thinks that way is a fool, or your dad may be angry but he will also be relieved that you're back. You know, you can't predict the future, Kvothe. You can't predict other people's reactions. Now, knowing who the author is, I don't think that we're going to come across a parent who would be anything other than grateful or relieved. But that's not saying that everyone would have that reaction. I don't want to keep dwelling on this, but the last few paragraphs kind of... And so I want to take some time to have a little bit of levity, because otherwise I'm going to go crazy. So Elspat, I hate them. I hate men. And all I have, because this is the twisted humor that I have in my brain, the thing that goes along in my head is Erika Ishii yelling at Rika Shankar during one of the episodes of Game Changer that we saw recently. Don't date men.
Don't date men. Yeah, Kvothe's response to this is, but I'm a man.
He says, you have every right to hate them, feeling more anger and helplessness than I ever had before in my life. But I'm also a man. Not all of us are like that. Not the right time, Kvothe!
Yeah. Like, it's one of those where if he had just stopped and said, I understand that. I don't blame you. Nothing else. Just full stop. That would have been fine.
But he didn't.
Nope.
Not all men did.
Yeah.
Okay, that's never meant to be said. If I am complaining to a guy about other guys' behaviors, you do not need to defend you and all the other nice guys. If I am complaining to you, that means I don't view you that way. But here is a thing that happens. Don't fix it. You can't. Nope.
Kvothe feeling the need to defend himself makes it again about him.
And I'm done with it.
Like I say, we hate this section.
I'm glad you also hate this section because...
So anyway, let's go ahead and move into Phronimos.
Do you have one?
Kinda, yeah. So there really isn't anyone. Kvothe is, by his own admission, an unreliable narrator, so we're left with a lot of justifications. And for every bit of wisdom he displays, he also shows 2 helpings of rationalization. This telling Kryn doesn't really show much in the way of agency, and El even less. So we're just going to go with Kvothe's memory of Vachette.
That one little chunk of... I thought that might be what you chose.
Yeah. So the Lethani is about setting a worthwhile end and then acting in a way that is both consistent with that end and effective in achieving it. Rather than it being an endorsement of Machiavellian ends justify the means or utilitarian maximization of overall happiness, the Lethani is specifically about making sure that your actions are both compatible with your values and do so in ways that achieve those values. For the sake of simplicity, it's about finding the correct course to the right end. To that end, consider what you seek to accomplish. Consider the various ways to reach that goal, and then look for successful methods that are compatible with that goal. It's not always easy. There may not always be a perfect situation. But if we're honest about our intentions and our actions, we can learn from those instances where the two do not line up and find ways to do better going forward. And I feel like here, this is where sometimes you'll find no true good choice by the time you make your worst choice. Usually your best choice is to not be in the situation.
Which you can't do.
You can do a whole lot of, if I knew then what I know now, I would do something differently. But most of the time, you aren't necessarily going to know now in the moment. But you can look to learn from those situations. And you can try and do better in the future. I don't get the sense that Kvothe is going to do that. He didn't take the right lessons from that at all.
He didn't take the right lessons from the whole month and a whatever the heck he was in Ademre. He immediately goes out and premeditates murder on people that are claiming to be of his family. It feels like such a slide backward for his character development. And I know that progress is not linear, but this is gross and I hate it.
I think the other thing to remember here, moving back to Vachette, The Lethani is not a single revelation that makes it so that all moral decisions suddenly become easy. It's a practice that helps to make the right choice more consistently, even if it never becomes easy. Again, it is a practice that people do daily in every situation that they're in, considering their actions, considering what they hope to accomplish with those actions, and seeing if those two really do connect. It's something that you do every day. It's something that you may not always do successfully, but you do it. It's a practice.
It's a choice.
Yes. And here, I think Kvothe has failed pretty hard. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and move to our thing of the week. It's your turn. What'd you pick?
So 2 different things. I think I've already actually recommended both Jill Barup and the Ideal Channel, which are the places where you can get those really good breakdowns of logical fallacies that I was talking about earlier. I'll link those in the description, but I think I'm going to go in a different direction than I was originally. I'm going to say, even though I've probably already recommended something similar, it's make a way to have true and ultimate comfort in your home. Even if it takes effort, even if it takes time and requires you to have to save up a little bit of money. There are ways to do it that are really expensive. There are ways to do it that are moderately expensive. There are ways to do it that are not so expensive. And there are ways to do it for a lot less. But we recently made some choices in the room that we are currently in that is ostensibly my studio, my space where all my craft supplies are, the place where all of the Lego that brings me joy and all of the stuffed animals and artwork and things and my musical instruments. This is a space that is truly mine. And I know that not everyone gets that. Not everyone can have that. But making yourself just a space that is for you, even if it's a space that is the size of you. I've been wanting something for the last 10 years, and it's a Lovesac, which is a pillow or a beanbag from the company Lovesac. Because when I was working at a game studio, we had the giant one that was 4 people big, and I fell in love with it. It was so comfy and it was so enveloping and it felt really good. And I had plans and desires and wants, and I finally was able to make it happen when there was a huge sale. And it is the most comfortable thing in the space. And it's because of texture, because of the way that it feels to be enveloped in it, the way that it feels like it's okay. It's a permission structure for me to take a nap. And not everyone has to go the same route that I did, but there are so many things that bring me discomfort. There are so many things that kind of set off my anxiety disorder, that overwhelm me, that finally getting something that is a cocoon, that is just meant to be a comfort, meant to be kind of a hug that is an object, it's brought me a lot of peace. I was half afraid I wouldn't let myself use it after we got it, because I have a habit of resisting things that bring me comfort, feeling almost like I don't deserve to be comfortable. But again, that's all
Horseshirt.
And not for nothing, but our cat's
an asshole,
who I absolutely adore, but he wakes me up sometime between 2 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning, literally every morning, wanting to be shown where his damn food is in the other room next to our room. And this morning I showed him to his food, and then I immediately came into the room that we're in and fell asleep in the pillow sack.
It was really cute when I came in this morning to find you just curled up and you had a great big smile on your face. You were just content.
But the thing is, I've also taken naps in it. I've allowed myself to just slough off some of the tension that I usually hold. And so I definitely recommend, if you have a way to give yourself a comfort, seize it.
Absolutely. So with that, it's time to move into 7 words. So I have the words from the book. And so here's what I've got. We've got, we are scattered and people hate us, but they made themselves out to be. They did things no edema would do. For what they did to you, yes. Yes, I am. and you are not.
That has no context.
No, it doesn't, but it is 7 words. My family farm's just north of Levenshire. When did these come into your town? I guess Ellie got an invitation too. None of them did, so I left.
Yeah, I saw that one. Did anyone object? None of them did, so I left.
What is the heart of the Lethani? But others may succeed by doing wrong things. I bet you're an L, aren't you? Do you think that's a good idea?
No.
Greytail is gentle as a lamb.
There was a little snide remark back from Kryn that was like, just because she's gentle and Elle has the wits of a sheep doesn't mean they're a good match, or something to that effect.
I had left a full water skin nearby.
Ugh.
What would Vachette think of my actions?
Bad. That you're bad, Kvothe. That this is bad. Don't do that, Kvothe.
And then my final choice here, the one that I actually chose, and none of this was your fault. Just a reminder that if someone abuses you, takes advantage of you,
harms you in any way, treats you poorly,
that is not your fault. That was their choice. You did not do that. So that's what I'm going to choose there.
That sounds great. My 7 words are pretty easy. I absolutely adore my new nap corner.
Aw, cute.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for potting with me.
Thank you for potting with me.
And thanks for listening to Tales from the Waystone. Join us next time on Tales from the Waystone as we discuss chapter 135 of The Wise Man's Fear through the lens of provincial folly.
We would like to thank our friend Shawnee Jang for our theme music.
And many thanks to Patrick Rothfuss for creating a world that we've enjoyed exploring.
Audio production, editing, and social media coordination, such as it is, courtesy of me, Phoenix McCullough.
And writing and project management, courtesy of me, Will McCullough.
If you would like to help support us and have the means to do so, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page, patreon.com/waystonepod. Again, if you want to have a say in what our bonus pods are going forward, please drop us a line, make a comment on the Patreon, any such things on our Discord also. We really do want to be good custodians, and we want to be good to our listeners.
And we want to make sure that we are listening to you. Fundamentally, we want this to be a safe space for our community, and that means that we take these sorts of things very seriously. So if you have suggestions, we'd love to hear them.
And with that, here's to one more day above the roses.
To one more day above the roses.
Ding!
Ding!
You're squishing the pillow. You're squishing the pillow.